Life is so fast-paced these days. Those of us who reside in London are often in such a hurry trying to get from A to B, then C to D, or D to C, then B to A, or some other exhausting combination of place to place that we seldom have the time or inclination to look up. And in our collective haste, we tend to miss some wondrous and curious things. You see, many of London's treasures are located way above the streets on the upper levels or even the rooftops of the city's buildings. They hover tantalizingly over us, but our eyes are so fixed on the street ahead as we deftly dodge the cyclists and electric scooters coming at us from all angles, or swerve to avoid that person who has just come to an abrupt halt in front of us to read their latest text, WhatsApp, or Snapchat message, that we seldom observe what's going on above our heads. However, there may be some of these hidden aspects of the London skyline that you might not want to encounter. Take, for example, the ferocious devils that perch on the walls and gable of the Victorian building next door to the church of St Peter Upon Cornhill. I would hazard a guess that the majority of the pedestrians who pass along Cornhill never notice these demonic terracotta figures looking down from their rooftop perches, unless, that is, they happen to spot a strange fellow with a camera who is lying on his back on the pavement trying to get a good and steady shot of them, and they look up curious to know what he's up to. But there must be some wayfarers who, as they pass the building at 54 to 55 Cornhill, feel a decidedly cold shudder tingle down their spines, and who might be overcome by the unnerving feeling that they are being watched by someone or something. They may experience an inexplicable urge to look up, and if they do so, they will lock eyes with a hideous demonic figure crouched menacingly above them, its face contorted with devilish rage, its body coiled as though ready to spring forward and swoop down to inflict diabolical mayhem on passers-by. No sooner have they recovered from the shock of this initial satanic sighting than their gaze may fix upon a second grotesque that appears to be howling a hellish curse in their general direction. And since this one overlooks the entrance to St Peter's Church, which tradition maintains is one of the oldest sites of Christian worship in London, they might become curious as to how he and his companions came to be there, since devils and churches tend to make uneasy bedfellows. There are in fact 3 devils on the building, and ferreting out how the church came to acquire these neighbours from hell is a tricky business. Pevsner's Architectural Guide to the City of London gives the devilish trio short shrift, stating simply, numbers 54 to 55, by Runtz, 1893, red Dalton, terracotta in an asymmetrical Loire Chateau style, more familiar in Mayfair. Angled turret, mullioned windows, gable with squatting demon. Not particularly enlightening, and only making mention of one demon, when there are in fact 3. The 2 already mentioned are easy to spot. The third is much smaller, a sort of mini-devil, and is overshadowed by the larger middle gargoyle. However, if you look a little closer, or zoom in with your digital or phone camera, I think you'll agree that this is the scariest of the trio. In truth, nobody knows for certain exactly how the 3 devils came to take up residence on the upper levels of 54 to 55 Cornhill. But that hasn't prevented a rather colourful legend from forming around their origins. The story goes that the architect responsible for this truly delightful building, Ernest Augustus Runtz, inadvertently allowed his design to cause the finished structure to encroach a little onto the land of the adjoining church. When he saw this, the then vicar was somewhat perturbed by the loss of land, and he made such a fuss over the unauthorised land grab that Runtz was forced to go back to the drawing board and redo his plans. Needless to say, he wasn't best pleased by this inconvenience, for which he wholeheartedly blamed what he saw as the vicar's unjust and unreasonable behaviour. Relations between the 2 men grew strained, and when 54 to 55 Cornhill was finally completed, Runtz decided to lob a parting shot in the general direction of the troublesome clergyman, and he commissioned the demonic stone effigies to commemorate their disagreement. As parting shots go, I think you'll agree, it was a pretty effective volley. Tradition also maintains that Runtz even went so far as to model the facial features of the most evil-looking of the trio on the face of his arch-enemy, the Vicar of St Peter's Church. Personally, I've never been able to decide which of the three is the most evil-looking, as they all look pretty malevolent to me, so I'm afraid I am unable to offer any guidance as to which one was modelled on the Vicar. Perhaps you have an opinion, dear viewer. If so, let me know your choice in the comments section below. Whether the story is true or not, it's a good yarn, and the presence of the rooftop devils certainly lends an aura of mystery and foreboding to the surroundings. So, should you ever find yourself wandering along Cornhill, be sure to look up as you approach the Church of St Peter and take a few moments to admire the architect's revenge on a long-ago vicar.